I have one message for Laurie. Laurie what?
Laurie Smith.
Laurie Smith. Is this my camera?
Yes.
Okay. Laurie, based on your website, I would have never hired you for a web designer. So I don't know what you were worried about.
I wouldn't hire her even if we were in hell.
But honestly, did you see her websites? These samples? I'm like, really, girl? That's what you have to show? Hey! Hi, everybody. I'm Lex.
And I'm Tony.
And this is the Lex and Tony Show.
Welcome.
Every single week, we take the top trending topics, whatever people are talking about online, and we untangle what matters
from what's essentially BS.
We also talk about the TV shows and movies that everybody's talking about.
And the ones that we love.
And we also feature interviews with up-and-coming artists and community leaders who are making a real difference. Last week, we featured the first half of the interview with Felipe Sosa Lasaballette, who's the executive director of the Hope Community Center and the fierce advocate of the immigrant community.
Mm-hmm.
So stick around for the second part that's featured in this episode today.
You don't want to miss it.
So let's dive into the show that we're really raving about, and we encourage you to watch. It's called Silo, or The Silo, or Silo?
Silo.
It's on AppleTV Plus, and it's a science fiction show, right?
Sort of dystopian future.
We tend to like science fiction shows.
I know. Yeah.
We're like obsessed.
They're juicy.
There's a bit of a mirroring with what we're living on now.
And we're all like, what went wrong?
The silo is what it sounds like. It's this structure, right? That's underground and people live in it.
Think of it like a giant skyscraper.
Yeah.
And people live at the different levels, and there's like hundreds of something levels.
The closer you are to the top, the closer you are to power. Right? And luxury, because it's more open, I guess, and people with jobs that are like doctors. Cushy jobs, right? And at the bottom, you have the engineers. What does that say to you?
No, at the bottom, you have the people that are doing all the work, really, how it normally is.
Okay, so you feel like you would be at the bottom because you're an engineer.
Yeah, we gotta keep things running. It's like very not glamorous.
It's the power generation, okay? Everybody down there is just making sure that everything's running.
And I have to say, the main protagonist is an engineer, and there is some engineering that goes in the show. So I like that aspect.
Who's the protagonist? Who's the actress?
Rebecca Ferguson.
So there's some really big names in this show. This is why good acting is always gonna get me to watch a show. We have Harriet Walker from Succession. So if you know the mother, you know what I'm talking about. But she's a completely different character in this show.
Superb actress. Tim Robbins is in it. And he's like particularly like mean, and he's really good.
He's really good at it.
Yes.
Common is in it also. Yes. Rashida Jones. Yes. There's some other names that I didn't recognize, but are also great actors and make the ensemble like really come together.
It's great.
So it's suspenseful. There's drama for sure.
There's mystery. There's like this pending mystery over everything.
There's also a little love story there. Somehow, that leads people to do crazy things.
Oh, they always do that in sci-fi shows, though, even though sci-fi writers don't really write that stuff.
It's really good. It's a really complete story. And why it stands out to us is because it's interesting how they've managed to hold this structure in this government for hundreds of years. People have been living in this silo for hundreds of years. They've never gone out. They know that there's an outside, but they don't talk about it. They even forbid people to talk about it or question it.
I want to go outside.
If you do go outside, they send you out. Literally, this is how they say they send you out to clean.
Yes, and you will end up dead, and as you will see in the first episode. So there's no spoilers.
Yeah, we're not going to spoil it for you. We're just going to tell you that there's some interesting themes there.
Yes,
that relate to what we're living in today, and that really make you think about how do people allow themselves to be subjected to a government that basically controls every move they make. So we have the mayor, the cops, and Judicial, and they all work together to maintain order.
And there's 10,000 people living there underground, and you got to figure out a way to keep the place running smoothly.
So there's this sense I get from watching this show. There's a little bit of a cult feeling to it, right? For the people that live there, because nobody questions anything. There's nothing to read in terms of history. Nobody knows what came before.
There's no old technology.
In relics, which is what they call things that are from before, they're forbidden.
Yes.
And there's harsh laws and punishment for anybody that holds any relics.
Exactly.
But those are the relics. Essentially, they know what they're doing when they're controlling the use of relics, because what they'll do is they'll make you question what came before.
Yes.
And if you're questioning what came before, then you'll question what is happening now. And then you'll then want to find out what you could do if you went outside.
And so the people that control all these relics and basically any information on the past is Judicial, which is what's really interesting for us.
Yeah, it stands out because there's a lot of power that rests on Judicial. They make all the decisions, or it seems that they do. And it's all in the effort of control. Control.
Yes.
There's no books. There's no talking about going outside. There's no information about, there's no transparency either about how decisions are made.
Right.
And people disappear all the time.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they're just like, poof.
And birth is like regulated.
Birth is regulated. That's another thing that stood out. There's birth control. There are certain people that are not allowed to have children.
So so Judicial brings to mind something that's going on in politics right now.
Yeah, the Judicial in this show is the equivalent of what we would think of the Supreme Court, right? Because it's the ultimate authority when it comes to the law, to enforcing the law.
They have the final word.
Right. So think about that with what's happening right now, right? We have some people who represent this authority, but we don't know really much about them. We don't know what influence they may have that determines the outcome of a lot of cases.
Right. We don't know pretty much anything that what they do. It's like only recently have we found out anything about like their traveling habits or who they talk with or who they hang out with, and it's actually been very unflattering. But that's not what we're talking about.
That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about these court cases that have been coming down with mixed reviews as to, yeah, this one's fair, this one's unfair. This one that we're talking about today is the Supreme Court case that came down based on a web designer's complaint.
So the story is that she said she filed a complaint against the Colorado laws that are anti-discrimination. So she's like, I don't want to be forced to make a wedding site for gays.
She claims that someone requested that she work on a website for a gay wedding.
And she refused.
That's the premise of the whole case.
And she refused. And then there was like a complaint in federal law, in federal court, that went up all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ruled last week for her.
Saying that she, as a Christian, because of her beliefs, she has the First Amendment right to express her beliefs and practice her beliefs and not be forced to create a website for something that she's vehemently opposed to.
And so what that means is that this person's rights take precedence over gay people's rights. And so what Tony Sotomayor said, one of the justices, is, well, now basically we're saying that gays are second-class citizens in certain conditions, and which is a big step backwards.
Right. And some people may argue, well, look, as a business person, you have the right to give services to whomever you want, right? If someone comes up to me and wants my services in digital marketing, I can see what their request is and determine if I have the time or, the bandwidth to work on whatever they're asking me. That's totally fine. But this is asking to make it a legal precedent to say you can discriminate against a group of people.
And I'm sure that there are people now lining at the door saying, I want to discriminate when they come to ask me to do this.
Venues. Like, think about it. When you're talking about a wedding, right? A website, you can just go to another company for a website.
You can ask the AI to make a website for you.
Right. But like, think about venues. Think about, just anything that...
Transportation.
Vendors.
What happens if, your Uber driver says, oh, you look gay? Bye.
This is in the time of where all these controversies have come out about certain companies, corporations that are endorsing diversity and celebrating pride and all that, the backlash that has come behind it. So the environment is such that there's this trend to discriminate. Here's the twist in the story.
And I started seeing it last, Saturday or something that came out, the stories. One of them was saying, well, actually, she wasn't making any websites when she filed a complaint.
Because my reaction,
wedding websites.
My reaction was, I went to her website. This is way back when this all started. I've been keeping track of this case. And I looked at her website as a designer myself, and I'm like, I would never hire this woman. Why would she make this portfolio about stuff that is horrible?
It looked like horrible cards, like
it
Hallmark
looked like
cards.
Amateurish. Honestly, it
like
looks
stock
like
photos.
Amateurish web design that is not even appealing to anybody.
Right.
Gay for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
We have taste.
But then I started reading articles saying, that one of the New Republic journalists came out and said, well, actually we were looking into the case, and the person that she named in her complaint actually
Who she claims requested service.
the gay couple.
Right.
She goes, well, we found the contact information for this person called Stuart.
Right.
And she's like, and they're like, the reporter went to Stuart and talked to them, and Stuart said, I've never heard of this lady. I'm a web designer. If I wanted that website, I would make it myself.
And get this, he's straight, married to a woman.
For 15 years. So he had already been married like 8 years when this thing happened.
So this is not insignificant, because this is the premise of the whole case.
Yes.
That this request was made by this individual who was named, because you can't just make stuff up.
Right.
But apparently you can, because this court case went all the way through.
She did.
And got the outcome that she wanted.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like tomfoolery going on around
Right.
here.
So now this is being investigated. There's hope in that this may be appealed by the Colorado Attorney General.
Yes.
And that this case would be thrown out. That would be the best outcome here.
There's this lawyer that came out on MSNBC.
Right.
He came out and said, actually, in Article 3 of the Constitution, it says that you have to have a real case and a real controversy. You cannot start making up cases and bringing it to the Supreme Court. With spam, you would spam them. And so most likely this will be struck down if the laws are followed.
But here's my take on this. I think it's kind of curious that this made it all the way up there without any investigation, any corroboration. Like, you would think that they would have asked, like, who is this person, and contacted them and corroborated that they did make the request, or at least some sort of, I don't know, forensic evidence that there was an IP address, because the claim was that he made the request through like an online form. So there has to be a paper trail in some way.
There needs to be some investigation. And what they're saying is that maybe a troll did it. And I'm thinking, yeah, a troll.
That's very convenient.
Like a mythological creature, as in the whole thing is fake, right?
It's very convenient to say that some troll found this real person's name, who is identified in this case as the one who made the claim.
I call BS.
Yeah.
And you know what? And I'm going to say it. I'm saying that they're throwing this troll theory out because what if she's actually lying and can get in trouble for the lies?
Right.
That's actually a problem.
Well, now she must be shaking in her boots.
Her boots were probably designed by gays.
I have one message for Laurie. Laurie what?
Laurie Smith.
Laurie Smith. Is this my camera?
Yes.
Okay. Laurie, based on your website, I would have never hired you for a web designer. So I don't know what you were worried about. But honestly, did you see her websites? These samples? I'm like, really, girl? That's what you have to show? We'll see what happens with this case. Well, I'm going to keep an eye out because it is significant. I think if we're seeing cases that are coming up that are fake, then it makes me wonder what other cases were brought up that are fake as well.